Hey friends, welcome to our craft studio. Today we're going to be making this adorable fairy lantern. We've got a fairy there on the bottom and she lights up, and all these cute little items right here on top to include a suspended butterfly that looks like it's in flight. So pull up a chair and let's get started. Here's the jar that we're going to use as the base for our fairy lantern. And what we're going to do is put some Mod Podge all the way around with some white glitter, but we're going to leave a window here where you can actually see the fairy that will be inside of the jar. So we're just going to take some Mod Podge and just a little foam applicator, and we're going to start painting, first of all, the window. I like to start with the window. So get a good amount of Mod Podge. Put it there on your jar. And then I just like to go ahead and paint the window area that's not going to have glitter on it. You can make it as big as you want or as small as you want. Coat that up really good with a nice coat. And some of you might say you don't like glitter, it gets everywhere. But when we're finished with this first coat and it completely dries, we're going to go back over it with the Mod Podge, and that will prevent the glitter from coming off when you touch it. I just got this glitter that I found at Michael's. And where we painted that Mod Podge for the window, we're just going to start dumping the glitter on. And all of this excess glitter, you will be able to put back in your jar that's fallen on the plate. You can put back in the jar and use it again. I'm going to put a nice liberal coat, because like I said, we're going to get to, this is not wasted. We'll be using it again. Then just tap it. Now all of this will be clear. We'll be able to wipe all that off when we're done. And we'll have a clear window right there into the fairy. So once the Mod Podge dries, all I've done is taken my Cricut and cut out a fairy. Now, if you do not have a Cricut machine, I know that you can either buy fairies cut out online or you can use stickers. But I just cut out that fairy from cardstock, dribbled a little bit of glue down there in the bottom of my jar, and just stuck that fairy right there. Now, all we're going to do is cover up that glue with some of these white rocks. Just drop those right in there. As many as you need to cover that glue. Yeah, I think that's good. Now maybe a few more there in the front. There we go. It's looking cute so far. So we've got the jar lid, and I used my cutters there just to cut out a little V, because we're going to attach the fairy lights to this lid, and that little V is where the cord's going to go through. So just cut off a little triangle there, and let me show you how to attach the lights. So for lighting, I have chosen to just use a Dollar Tree string of lights, and all I've done is hot glued them here to the insert lid. And I made sure my cord came through the little niche we cut out. Now you could use fairy lights. Here's some from Amazon. They're really cute too, but you still have a wire that shows around the lights. And I don't want anything to show through the window of the fairy lantern. So that's why I've chosen to do it this way, keep them on the lid and you don't see them inside the front window. So we're just going to insert those lights right down in. And then we're going to add a little bit of glue and attach our battery pack right there to the lid. Just put a little bit of glue on the cords and then some on each side to hold that battery pack. Now I bought some moss from the craft store, and that's what we're going to use to cover the lid and the light cover here. You can see it from the finished one here. See how you can see the moss there inside. So we're going to cover the base in moss, and then the fun part starts. We get to decorate it. But first, let's cover it in the moss. Now I have covered this jar in many trial and error ways. Some I just draped it over and tied it like a bonnet, and it just didn't look that good. So what I've done is I've created some patterns, and we're just going to cover the sides and top with these patterns that I've created. It'll make it easy to cut the moss to the right size, and it'll be a more fitted look. So we'll get these patterns here cut out, and then I'll show you how cute it looks when you get them on the jar. Now we have all of our pieces cut, and I want to caution you, don't throw away the parts of the moss that would normally, be put in the trash can, because when we have the finished product here, you might have a place where you want to stick a little moss. And that's perfect right there to use these scrap pieces that you've cut off. This stuff's expensive, so you definitely want to save those scraps. Now, when I'm covering the jar, I prefer to peel this black backing off. I feel like that the end pieces go together much better when the black has been removed. So I'm just going to peel all these black pieces off. Now that we have those patterns cut, it's just as simple as covering your lid. So once you put some glue, put that right on your lid, and cover it on all the sides. Now, see what I mean when you don't have the big black backing? It just fits together easier, I think. I think I got one of those pieces backwards. This one ended up a little long. But you get the picture. You get the picture of exactly what I'm trying to say here on how to get that lid covered. I'm going to put it on the side. Now, I always just cut this whole round piece, and then I just determine about where I need to cut it to cover that front. So that's going to be about right there. give that a cut. And then you see how it just fits right there over that lid. Now some of these gaps, if they show when you're finished decorating the top, you just go in with a little piece of your scrap moss and cut it off, and then just glue that right there, and you'll never be able to see. Now there's a trick to this part. We want to be able to access our on and off switch. So we're just going to cut a little hole here, probably just right near the edge there. As a matter of fact, I think if we did it on this side, there's already a little thin place. So let's just cut a little hole out. This is how we will access our on and off switch. Now, see how I just did that? Let's do a dry fit. I think it's going to work. And then glue that right in place. And we can access the on and off switch. Now, I was going to wrap something different around the lip of the jar there, but I like this moss look so well. I think I'm going to cut just a long strip of the moss and tape it or glue it right there to the front of the jar. So I've cut that strip. Now we're just going to glue that right along the rim of the jar. Now I like to start in the back, so your seam will end up in the back. But most of the time it's covered with the decorations anyway. You don't even see it. And just start applying that all the way around. So the whole jar now is covered. And like I said, we're not going to worry about these little pieces until we put all the embellishments on, and then we'll fill in with those scraps any place that's still bare. So like I said, we're going to be embellishing it like this one here. And I'm going to do a different color. This was a green mushroom. This time I want to use a pink mushroom, but I don't want to use pink flowers. I decided to use some white flowers. So we'll use the mushroom, some white flowers. We'll use a succulent. Some of those same tiny mushrooms. And then some stones that came from Dollar Tree. And finally, a little ladybug. We'll put on there. These are just little items that I think of when I think of a fairy garden. And then for the butterfly, all this is right here is some string lights. So I like to cut those apart because this wire is what allows this little butterfly to appear to be flying. It's the perfect size wire. So that's what we're going to use to make that butterfly fly. So let's just start embellishing with all of these cute decorations. Now, one thing to remember as you're placing items here on the jar, well, actually on the jar lid, is you want to always be mindful of where the front is. So when you place your items and you're looking at it from the front, that's the way they'll look. Rather than decorating everything and then realizing that what I meant to be the front is on the back of the jar. So there we go. We're just going to start. We're going to hot glue these items on. Now it's at this point, I've got lots of flowers around, and now at this point is when I like to go back and find the places in the moss that might not look good. So I think we're going to add some more rock right there, and then up here, right there along that ridge, I might just put moss from the scraps, but I'm going to fill in those bare spots that look like that. So I've got all the flowers on there. I filled in any little places that was bare with either a rock or some more moss. Now the secret to the moss is when you're putting it here to make like a 3D effect, make sure you don't cut perfectly square pieces. These are jagged, so it looks more, realistic. So the only thing left to do now is to attach our butterfly. Now all I did was cut one of the pieces of string off. This was from String Light, so I cut one side off. Now I've just straightened this one out right here, and all we have to do is glue that right down into our moss, and then we've got a little butterfly hovering above. So let's get that glued down. So there we are. They're both done. You can see how cute they look. I really like this little butterfly in flight on top. Anyway, these were made for a fairy-themed party. They're going to be used as table centerpieces, but you could just do this for a child's room. This could be a fun summer craft for them. They could even collect their own rocks while they're playing outside in the summertime. It's just unlimited the uses that you could find to use these for. I hope you enjoyed this craft today, and if you did, please give us a follow so you'll be notified anytime we post a video about a new craft. We'd love to have you join the party. It's always fun.